Welcome to the Lambton College International Graduate Services and Support Center, your dedicated resource for navigating life after graduation. We know the journey can be complex, from understanding immigration processes to making career decisions and expanding your professional network. That's why we're here, to simplify these challenges and support your transition into Canadian life. At the International Graduate Services and Support Center, our mission extends beyond your academic achievements. We are here to facilitate your successful integration into the Canadian workforce and society. From career counseling to workshops on Canadian workplace culture and immigration support, our services are tailored to meet the unique needs of international graduates. We're committed to empowering you with the tools and knowledge necessary for success. Embrace the opportunity to connect with fellow graduates and professionals through our networking events and stay informed with our comprehensive webinars covering a range of topics crucial for your postgraduate success. Remember, the path to achieving your aspirations is a journey we undertake together. Ready to take the next step? Visit our website and join our supportive community. Remember to follow us on Instagram and on LinkedIn for upcoming immigration webinars, networking events, and much more. Together, let's make your postgraduate journey a success.
Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Cristina Giguren, and I'm the coordinator of the International Graduate Services and Support Center. I want to remind you that we are recording this webinar so that you can watch it again later on our YouTube channel, and also you're going to get a recording shortly. I want to invite you as well to follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram, where you can find about our upcoming events. For 2025, we're planning some exciting events for you, so I recommend you to stay tuned. Also visit our YouTube channel, where you can find various topics and webinars regarding immigration and career advice. This center is dedicated to assisting you, our international graduates, as you seek employment and settle into Canadian life following graduation. International graduates from all four campuses have access to immigration, career advice, and networking events. There are many, many reasons why you can take pride in being a Lambton College graduate, as I'm also very proud of working here. We've been ranked as one of Canada's top research colleges, and also we're here to support you all the way with these services that I just explained to you. We're one of the few colleges in Canada that has a graduate center for our graduates to help you in your post-graduation journey. Today, we're going to talk about a very important topic. It is LMIA with two amazing guests. So I hope you are joining today with your employer. We have Elizabeth Long. If you've been following us in our previous events, you know her already. She is a leading immigration lawyer in Canada. Elizabeth holds a Juris Doctor law degree from University of Toronto. She also holds a Master of Law degree from York University. Elizabeth has been certified by the Law Society of Ontario as a specialist in citizenship and immigration law, a prestigious list in which only approximately 65 lawyers in Canada belong. We also have Jaclyn Medeiros, who is an associate lawyer at LMIA Group. She's dedicated to helping her clients navigating their immigration journeys and aims to ensure her clients feel comfortable with the Canadian immigration process. She holds a Juris Doctor law degree from the University of Toronto, and she has worked on refugee and immigration matters with various nonprofit organizations and legal aid as well. So thank you very much, Elizabeth and Jaclyn, for joining us today. I am sure you will get great value in today's webinar, and we are here to support you, as we were saying before. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Christina. It's wonderful to be here today, as always. Christina, let me just share my screen here. And while I'm getting my slides up, I just wanted to sort of talk to you guys a little bit about what's happening right now in immigration. As you probably have all been feeling, this government right now has been doing a lot of restrictions over the last few months. And we recently just had a announcement. It wasn't a formal announcement on the IRCC part, but it was a sort of an interview, and the Minister of Immigration was saying that he said he's going to eliminate the points for express entry for permanent residents. for LMIA work permits. Now, nothing official has been said yet, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But there are still a lot of advantages to getting a LMIA work permit or other employer-specific work permits. Um, one of the main reasons is so that you can extend your work permit. Because if you are currently on an open work permit like the postgrad work permit, well, the postgrad work permit, you can only get one in your lifetime. And you're not going to be able to extend your work permit beyond your current work permit unless you are eligible for another kind of work permit. Okay, so looking at types of work permits, I've outlined some of the main work permits. There's a whole bunch of, different kinds of work permits, but essentially what we are looking at is we have open work permits, such as the postgrad work permit, spousal work permit, etc. And we have the employer-specific work permits. So the employer-specific work permits, we are divided into the LMIA work permits and the International Mobility Program work permits that are employer-specific, but they don't require a LMIA. Okay, so let's first take a look at the LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessments. What are they? Well, they're applications, first of all, that your employer would have to make with the ESTC or Service Canada. They're kind of jointly responsible for these. And they're basically applications to the Labor Department to show that hiring you as an employee would be beneficial to the labor market. Now, there are various different kinds of LMIAs. The main one is set at low wage versus high wage. Okay, so there is, and I put the link in here, a set provincial level as to what they are considering to be low wage and what they are considering to be high wage. It's no longer set at the median wage level for each province. It's the median wage plus 20%. That was a new thing that was announced. I think it was in October about that. But it was basically, so basically you have to go into the website here and you have to see, well, first of all, is my salary above this set provincial level or below? If it's below, then you're going into the low wage. If it's above, that you can go into the high wage. One of the very important things you have to know is that your salary has to meet the median wage as well for your occupation. Okay, so it can't just be any salary. Salary has to meet at least the median wage for your occupation, but now we're also looking at these set provincial levels. Why is this important if it's low wage or high wage? Well, because for the most part, most low wage LMIAs are really no longer available. If your unemployment rate, the unemployment rate in your area is above 6%, and I would say for most major cities, Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, they're all over the 6%, then unless your occupation meets one of the very, very few categories for that, then your employer wouldn't be able to apply for LMIA if it's low wage. The only thing that we can still do is if you don't need to have your work permit extended, all you are doing is to apply to support your permanent residence. If you are going to support your permanent residence only and you're not filing it to extend your work permit, that's still available. Now, whether or not this is going to be meaningful at all, if the government changes their policies on arranged employment, that's another matter. But right now, you can submit LMIA low wage applications as long as you meet the median wage for your occupation if it only supports your permanent residence. Now, if your wage is above this level, which is the high wage, then we can apply for the LMIA. Certainly there's a lot of other factors that we have to take into consideration, but one of the main things is that your employer would have to first go through a recruitment of Canadians and permanent residents and other open work permit holders and show that there's no one, in these groups who is able and willing to do the job. Okay. All right. Now, there's one other category as well, which is the global talent stream. Now, global talent stream is one of my favorite LMIAs to do, and that's because there is no recruitment required. There's recruitment required for high wage and low wage. Global talent stream, it bypasses the recruitment requirement, but it's only available for certain STEM occupations, and there are certainly you need to meet the median wage for your occupation, or for certain occupations they set an even higher wage. But the nice thing about it is there's no recruitment requirement. The processing time is only around 2 weeks or so, which is extremely fast compared to some of the other applications, which can take anywhere from 3 to 7, 8 months to process. The main thing that the employer has to provide in this situation is that they have to show that they are going to promise at least three labor market benefits. These usually have to include training and hiring Canadians, and then there are other labor market benefits as well. Okay. And one last thing that we have seen that the government threw another roadblock for LMIAs is that companies and the employers now have to show business legitimacy without being able to get a financial attestation from accountants. What this means is the government now scrutinizes the tax documents from your employers to see whether or not they have had a net income, or the net profit, or the retained earnings from the previous year and stuff. Or if you are a current employee, then you can submit your payroll stubs for at least 6 weeks. Okay. Other than that, if they don't have enough money, then they are also rejected for the LMIAs. So these are some of the restrictions. LMIAs are certainly not an employer's favorite thing to do. I wanted to talk more about the IMP, employer-specific work permit. So these are work permits that are employer-specific, that are part of their international mobility program. So the employer, instead of having to go through all of the LMIA applications, they're able to bypass the LMIA, and they file what's called an offer of employment on the employer portal. That's something that is then submitted, and the system basically takes a few seconds, maybe a few minutes, and then it's recorded. There's no assessment by an officer of the offer of employment. Okay. So it's much faster and easier for an employer to do this. So there are only specific kinds of work permits. You have to qualify for these kind of work permits. One of the ones that we use a lot are the free trade agreement professional work permits. So these are for people who are nationals of certain countries, like Peru, Colombia, Mexico, US, Australia, UK, EU, Chile. I'm sure I'm missing some, Japan. So, and the list goes on, New Zealand, etc. And so if you're a professional and you're a national of those countries, and you have a job that is listed on, well, it depends on the free trade agreements, but certain kinds of professions that are included in the agreements, then you can apply for a work permit without having to go through the LMIA. There's another one that's a francophone. Now, we talked about this in a previous session that we did with Lambton College. For the francophone work permit, if you can speak and listen to the CLB 5 level, then you can obtain a work permit for any job outside of Quebec. Okay, it doesn't have to require you to speak French. You just have to yourself pass the French exam, speaking and listening, and you can get the work permit, the francophone work permit. Another one, if you're working as a charitable worker, where you're doing charitable work, your work itself has to be charitable. You can work for a nonprofit organization that is not yet a charity themselves, as long as the work that you do is charitable. Or if you're a religious worker as well, you can get a work permit that's LMIA exempt. If you're doing work that we can show that it would affect the Canadian public, their safety, jobs are on the line, or if you can show that you are creating a cultural significance and contribution to Canada, we can apply for a work permit under the significant benefit category to Canada. There are certain agreements, it's similar to the free trade agreements, but there's a lot more of these kind of agreements where Canada, Canadians can go to other countries, and therefore young people from other countries can come to Canada. They're usually under the age of either 30 or 35. And you, as long as you have a job offer in Canada, you can apply for the young professionals work permit. It just depends on your nationality. No, so that's the young professionals. There's a working holiday one, which is an open work permit. But the reason why I like the young professionals is because it is employer specific. And so if you have a job offer from an employer, then we can apply for this if you qualify under, with your nationality. And we'll talk about that later. This could help you with your arranged employment points for permanent residence afterwards. There's a interesting category that we've been using more and more called the reciprocal agreement category, where if you work for a employer that sends Canadians to work abroad, then they are also able to bring the same number of workers to Canada and obtain work permits for workers to Canada that they send abroad for the Canadians. Provincial nominations, these are applications, for example, such as the employer-specific applications for OIMP or other provinces. And once you get the provincial nomination, you do still have to apply for a work permit to keep you working in Canada. And the employer has to submit an offer of employment, but because of the provincial nomination, they don't have to go through the LMIA. And finally, for those entrepreneurs, there is an entrepreneur work permit that we can submit if you own at least 50% of the business, and you can show that you will bring significant benefit to Canada if you open up the business. Okay, so if you are in that category, do come, or in any of these categories, do come and let us know. We can walk you through what is required for your situation. All right, so let's talk about right now why are people, looking at this, even if they don't need to extend their work permits right away? Why do people want these kind of work permits for express entry? It's because these kind of work permits give you arranged employment points. For most high-skilled positions, it's 50 points. For these executive management positions, it's 200 points. So for example, if you are an entrepreneur and you basically are the CEO of your company and you are managing other people, you could get 200 points for arranged employment. Okay, so basically how it works is if you have an LMIA, you can get the arranged employment points right away after you have the LMIA, as long as you have a job offer for that job for at least, which is valid for at least 1 year after you get permanent residence. If you have the IMP, employer specific work permit, so it's basically LMIA exempt work permit, that's still employer specific, you have to have worked for the employer for at least 1 year, and also have the job offer of 1 year after obtaining permanent residence. So let's move on to this recent interview by the minister, Mark Miller. What did he say? Now, again, this is basically not a formal IRCC announcement. Okay, this is basically what he has said in his interview. He had said that he will want to eliminate points for job offers. Basically, what we're thinking is he's going to eliminate the arranged employment points for express entry. Again, this is not an official IRCC announcement. It was just reported by limited news sources. There was a Financial Post article that came out. Okay, so it's not in place yet, which means, well, you might want to take the chance and try to get yourself in before there is an announcement. Maybe he might not even get a chance to put into place because there's as you can probably see from the news, there's a lot of turbulence right now by the government. There might be a cabinet shuffle. If he's replaced by another minister, then there might be some time before these kind of announcements are made. So who knows what exactly might happen. What I would advise you guys is 3 things. Number 1, make sure that you come for a consult, you know what all of your options are. Okay? Number 2, if you have the option to do certain things, make sure you don't sit on it, go and do it right away. You may want to, try to put into place several different options so you don't, just stick all your eggs in one basket because the laws are changing all of the time. And if you are lucky enough to get invited to apply, make sure that you hire good immigration lawyers who can make sure that your applications are submitted properly because you might just not get that second chance to submit it again. Okay, so this is our information. We do post on social media as well. Things like what the minister has said, we're going to be reacting to that. We will be putting all of you guys on our newsletter as well. We send out news blasts whenever things can change, that or things news has changed. We'll send you guys some news blasts as well, just to keep you guys up to date as well. Okay, but if you wanted to book for a consultation to go over your options, please let us know that you've attended this webinar and with Lambton College, and we will give you the student discount. The student discount is $100. The consultation is $100 plus tax, and we do it by Zoom or Teams, so you don't have to come to our office as well. All right, let's get started. Now, if you have questions, put them in to the Q&A button. Okay, I see some questions there, and put them into the Q&A button, and then we'll try to answer them. Okay. All right, Jaclyn, do you wanna go over these questions?
Yep, so we have one question so far. So the first question is, what is the duration of an LMIA work permit?
So it would depend on if it is a low wage or high wage? Low wage are normally 2 years. High wage is 3 years. And there is a difference between how long a LMI is valid for and how long you get your work permit. So LMIA might be valid, for example, for 6 months. That means that you have to apply for your work permit before it expires, before the validity date, okay? But your work permit would be valid, for example, for 3 years once it's issued.
Thank you. Okay, we're getting some more questions now. So one of the questions is, for the Francophone program, does a candidate need to know French language?
Yes, that's the whole point of a Francophone program. So you need to pass the French exam for speaking and listening to the CLB 5 level. Okay, CLB 5 level, just speaking and listening, not reading or writing. CLB 5 level for that.
Okay. And our next question, I'm a bit unsure about the question. It says, if the government eliminates the points for the LMIA, so arranged employment points, but if I am part of TLC, I'm not sure what this person is referring to. Do they still add points to my express entry profile, knowing that I do not have an LMIA? So
Not sure what TLC actually means. We don't actually know what they're going to do to eliminate the points because there's been no formal announcement of what the policy would be if they eliminate. It could be that, you know, they eliminate points for some LMIAs, but not others. It could be that they eliminate only points for LMIAs, but not the International Mobility Program. It could be that for people who are already in the pool, that you don't have your points eliminated. It could be that for people who have already submitted their LMIAs, you know, that you don't have your points eliminated. So we're not exactly sure what's going to happen. Once there are formal announcements made, we will post those on our newsletter blasts that we'll sign you guys up for, and we'll send those out. We usually, for newsletter blasts, we usually post what the government has formally said. When it's just speculation, we'll do social media posts, and you can see it there.
Okay, so the next question is, if I receive a provincial nomination outside of express entry, do I need an LMIA to continue working if my work permit is close to the expiry?
So if you receive a provincial nomination, then you may be able to be eligible for a LMIA exempt work permit. Now, there are different kinds of provincial nominations. There are some provincial nominations where it's an employer-based program. So for example, the OIMP, there's an international student program or a foreign worker program, in-demand program. Those are all employer-based programs. For those, you can apply for a work permit as long as the employer files an offer of employment and you have the provincial nomination certificate. There are other programs such as, for example, there is a master's stream or a PhD stream in Ontario where you don't require to have any job offer. For those applications, you have to first submit your permanent residence and get an acknowledgement of receipt before you're able to file a work permit extension for that. Okay, the work permits that you get that are employer-based programs, those are employer-specific work permits. For the master's, PhD, those are kind of bridging work permits there that are open work permits.
Thank you. And so the next question we have is, my friend's company applied for an LMIA 6 months ago. What should he do now in the LMIA process?
That's a very difficult question for me to answer because I don't know what exactly is going on with your friend. If he didn't have a lawyer representing him, we can have a consultation and see what's going on. You can refer him to us. We can have a conversation and see what's happening. Right now, some of the LMIAs are taking a long time. 6 months is not unusual for some of these LMIAs to take. The main issue with the LMIAs, though, is many times because there are so many different nitpicking rules from the LMIAs that employers who apply on their own can often have their applications rejected after waiting for so many months. So it's very important to make sure that these LMIAs are properly applied for. So that when you finally get them assessed, that they are actually approved.
Thank you. So we have a very specific question about increasing PR points. So I think, could you just speak more generally as to certain ways that applicants might be able to increase their points in express entry?
So, I mean, for express entry points, we've done some previous webinars for Lambton College with regard to express entry. But in terms of the permanent residence, with regard to the arranged employment points, that will require you to have, first of all, the LMIA or the other kind of employer-specific work permit. And then you need to have that job offer. If it's a permanent job offer, great. And to get those kind of points. LMIA, you get the points right away. For the employer-specific ones that are LMIA exempt, you need to have worked for the employer for at least a year. But do come and we can certainly look into your situation and we can advise you on a plan as to what to do.
Okay, and then we just have one more question. It's a bit more general. It's just, can you please explain more details on the employer-specific work permit? If there's something specific that you would like to know, you can feel free to send another question in.
Yeah, the
Because
honest
there's
the
also
employer-specific work permits, you still need the employer to help you. The employer has to file details of your job in the offer of employment. It's a pretty easy thing to file, but afterwards, the employer has to adhere to all of those conditions as well. Okay, so we do these kind of applications all of the time. But it's very important for employers to understand what their obligations are for both the LMIA and the IMP, because 1 out of 4 employers are audited. And if they're audited and they don't adhere with all of the requirements, then they could get into some trouble with that. Okay, so these kind of work permits, it's not just your application. These work permits, LMIA is absolutely the employer's application. You don't even get to see anything. It's the employer who signs the forms. It's the employer who provides the documents. You get the work permit. You have to apply for your work permit after the LMIA is issued. For the IMP work permit, you do sign the forms or you apply for your work permit, but the employer is also involved in submitting evidence to the government as to why you qualified for the work permit. And also with regard to the offer of employment, whatever information is filed there, they are held to that standard and they have to comply and meet that standard throughout the entirety of your employment while you're on that work permit.
So we have another question that says, is employee support, I think they mean employer support, the same as sponsorship?
So I really like this question because it really highlights what kind of terminology is circling around, oftentimes the employer circles, that is really not correct. We don't have anything called employer sponsorship in Canada. That is an American term. In the States, they have something called employer sponsorship. In Canada, we don't have employer sponsorship. And so when it is that you go to an employer and you say, can you sponsor me? And this term is used all of the time. It is incorrect. And sometimes, because sponsorship, it seems to be a very loaded word. When people hear sponsorship, they often all of a sudden think, oh my gosh, what do I have to do? Does that mean that I'm on the hook for, whatever, and I can't fire you, or etc.? Do I have to pay everything? So it's be very, very specific when you're speaking with an employer as to what it is that you need from them. If you don't know, and it's hard for you to explain exactly, then when we have our clients, we say, can you put me on a call with the employer so I can explain whatever it is that they need to do and what their obligations are.
So that flows well into our next question, which is how can I know if the company complies with the revenue requirements and the quantity of Canadians or PR employee requirements?
So that is something that can vary depending on the kind of applications. Normally what we do is when we speak with the employer, we will ask them questions to understand whether or not, for example, LMIA is possible, right? We don't want the employers to go through all of the expenses and the hassle and etc. And for you to be waiting for and not, just for an LMIA, that's not going to happen. So the initial assessment is very, very important for us to have that initial assessment to see what are the chances that they're going to grant you an LMIA. One of the things that I just wanted to speak with you guys about is there is a lot of fraud out there in the system where people will say, hey, give me like, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, and I'm going to get you an LMIA. Okay, don't worry, I'll get you an LMIA. This is one of the reasons why the minister is trying to say that he wants to cancel the LMIAs for supporting permanent residents. That is a fraud. Okay, as an employee, you're not allowed to pay for anything for the LMIA. You're not allowed to pay the employer, certainly not a third party. You're not even allowed to pay the lawyer's fees who, are, for example, my fees. If I'm helping to representing someone with the LMIA, the employer pays me, not the employee. I am not allowed to accept any money from the employee to apply for the LMIA. Okay, the employer pays everything. So if you have someone coming up to you and saying, okay, if you just pay me or pay the employer, then you can get, that is actually illegal.
Okay. Our next question is, what can my employer do if my open work permit expires to keep me in working status until my LMIA gets approved?
So we have this thing called implied status. That's if you file an extension of your work permit before it expires. The IRCC website says 30 days. It's not 30 days. That's just a recommendation, not the law. As long as you file it before, even the day before is okay. You have the legal right to continue to work based on the conditions of your original work permit that you're filing extension for until a decision is made on your new work permit. Okay. And that length of time right now, I think it's around 5-6 months. So Oftentimes, when we have filed a LMIA and we're waiting for the LMIA decision, we will provide a copy of the LMIA application in with the with your work permit extension application, and there is a policy by IRCC to hold your work permit application until for maybe a couple of months after the officer gets to it until a decision is made. Okay, so there are certain things that you can do to try to extend that waiting time, because yes, the LMIAs are taking quite a long time these days to be decided.
We don't have any other
All
questions.
right. We did it. We went through everything.
Yeah, we did. I have dropped information about the college, the center, and LM Law Group in the chat. You can take a look over there. And I just have a question, Elizabeth, if you can let us know, what's the difference in hiring an immigration lawyer versus a consultant?
So, first of all, I'm a little bit biased because I am an immigration lawyer. But I do think that as immigration lawyers, we go through law school, we deal with the law, and the regulation for lawyers are much more strict than consultants. And we often see a lot of times people getting into trouble with consultants not understanding everything. There are also different kinds of consultants as well that are out there. But for lawyers, there are different kinds of lawyers out there as well. I'm a certified specialist in immigration law. There's only around 65 lawyers in Canada that are certified specialists. Right now, things in immigration are getting a lot more complicated than before. There's a lot of changes. There are a lot of little things that the officers are looking at to try to reject an application. There are a lot of times that officers are making mistakes in rejecting applications. And if they do make a mistake, then we have to go to federal court. When we go to federal court, that's something that only lawyers can do. So my recommendation is just to go to a very good immigration lawyer with a lot of experience and who knows what they're doing, but also who is very concerned about your situation and can understand what you're going through as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. We have another question about the consultation fees. So with Elizabeth, it will be $100 plus tax, and you will have a very good lawyer with you. That's our recommendation. So book a consultation. You have the information in the chat. You can contact Elizabeth and Jaclyn. Let me answer this. Okay, I think we're done for today. Well done.
Yay.
So I'm sure you got great value in today's webinar. We have been looking at the LMIAs process. And if you still have more questions, you can join us this afternoon at 5:30. Talk to your employer and join us again. You will just need to register. What discount can we get? The discount is $100. We have another question, so that will be the same, $100.
Yeah, the consultation fee is the discounted rate for students. It's 50% off. Normally it's $150. So for you guys it's $100. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. So you have seen this webinar. If you didn't see it with your employers, you can take a look and join us in our afternoon session if you have more questions. Again, Elizabeth and Jaclyn, thank you so much for the explanation. It's been very useful information. And everybody, I hope you have happy holidays, and we will be here to support you in 2025 as well. So we're looking forward for what's coming next, and happy holidays, everybody. Thanks for joining us today, and see you this afternoon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.